Okay, welcome back, everyone. We are going to be looking at the fourth type of tissue, which is going to be the neuron. So let's take a look at the neural tissue now. And when we talk about the nervous system or the neural system, we have two types of cells. One is called the neuron, which is the only cell that's electrically excitable. And then we have other type of cells that are called neuroglial or neuroglial cells. It looks like nerve glue, right? So we have neuroglial cells and the neuron. But the neuron is what we're looking at down below. It's the only cell that's electrically excitable. When you get into neurology and you look at the neuroglial cells, you'll hear of things called Schwann cells, microglial cells, ependymal cells, satellite cells, oligodendrocytes. Those are neuroglial cells. But let's focus on the neuron first. Now, the neuron has about three main parts. Okay, we have the cell body, which is right here. It's called the soma or the cell body. It has branches called dendrites, which comes from the Greek word dendra. Dendra means a tree or branches. So, and then we have an axon. So those are the three main parts, right? Cell body, dendrites, and the third being the axon. And you can see the direction that the message travels. So it goes into the dendrites, into the cell body, and then out and away through the axon. So again, don't confuse these numbers as the order that things travel. I just kind of numbered the three main parts. But if I were to number it in order, it would be dendrites, into the cell body, into the axon. Now, when you follow the axon, notice the axon has these myelinated sheaths, and all of these myelinated sheaths are really just an insulator, right? This is just an insulator. The myelin sheaths are actually created by a neuroglial cell, and the specific neuroglial cell, if we're talking about one in the peripheral neural system, it's called a Schwann cell. Schwann cell. So these Schwann cells produce myelin, and myelin is really just fat and cholesterol that's wrapping around this axon. And it speeds up, it really does speed up the action potential or the nerve impulse to make it all the way to the end of the axon, which is called the axon terminal. And at the end of these axon terminals, there are proteins hanging out in here. And these proteins are called neurotransmitters. They're found in these, what we called end bulbs or synaptic end bulbs. What we have in these synaptic end bulbs are neurotransmitters. Now, let's say this synaptic end bulb, let's change this to black here. It's going to attach to something. It's got to connect to something. So let's say right here, this is going to be a muscle. Let's just say this is muscle tissue here. Let's say it's the biceps brachii or triceps or something. So the neurotransmitters are going to be released into the muscle to make the muscle react. These neurotransmitters can either be excitatory or they could be inhibitory. They could be like an on switch or an off switch. When it's at the muscle, we're going to be talking about a neurotransmitter called acetylcholine, ACH, acetylcholine. It's an on switch. It's always an excitatory neurotransmitter at the neuromuscular junction, at the NMJ. The neuromuscular junction is just this specific location between the synaptic end bulbs and the muscle. That's called the neuromuscular junction. When these Schwann cells that are producing the myelin, which are an insulator to the axon and speed up the action potentials, when the body has an autoimmune condition, and it attacks those Schwann cells or breaks down the myelin, we call it MS, multiple sclerosis. Multiple sclerosis is when the myelin sheath gets broken down, and then things start to misfire and misfunction. Usually the first indicator of MS shows up in the eyes, some of the smallest nerves in the body, the eyes, the optic nerve. It's a cranial nerve. And people experience visual disturbances. And then people often complain of problems with the coordination of their legs and their hands. Maybe they're holding a glass and it drops out of their hand, or their legs feel very, very heavy, like tree trunks, they'll complain. So oftentimes important to check for in the brain to see if there's any demyelinization, where the myelin sheaths are actually being broken down. Okay, when we come back, we'll do a little bit of a tissue review and see how you can do on that, okay?